Forced Migrant by Dylan Williams. Chapter 3. Shit, 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 Daryl repeated as they looked over the side of the roof. A SWAT team, really, Nick said. Below them, the street had suddenly filled with dozens of squad cars and SWAT vans with men and women pouring from them fully equipped for war. With everything going on, they decide to come now? This is good, isn't it? Kay asked. Maybe they're here to help those women. Maybe, Nick said doubtfully, pulling back from the ledge. Hell no, it's not good, Daryl said as he began to pace. My mom may have been white, but they don't know that. They're going to shoot me and there won't even be a trial. No justice for Daryl. Aw, man. Daryl, calm down. They're not gonna shoot you, man. Well, I can't promise that actually, but I don't think they're gonna shoot you for no reason. Oh, they have a reason, all right. I saw at least 5 cops down there darker than you. I don't think you have to worry, Nick said, and apparently it was the wrong thing. Daryl stopped pacing and glared at him for a second before resuming. Your white privilege is showing. Okay, you two, Kay interrupted. She was standing in the center of the roof still, refusing to get close to the edge since the police arrived. Can someone please tell me what we're doing? Attention, criminals. This is the CPD, the voice echoed from a loudspeaker on the street. The president has declared martial law in order to ensure a safe and orderly evacuation. Those of you who have chosen to take refuge in the zone referred to as the Kingdom have been designated dangerous criminals and are hereby placed under arrest. We have the entire block surrounded. Lay down your arms and surrender, or lethal force will be authorized. You have 5 minutes. What do we do? Kay asked, after they spent a moment staring at each other in silence. I don't know. I thought we could steal some dope or coke or something and smuggle it with us, use it as trade to get an upper hand once we got wherever we were going, but now, getting it past Luther was one thing. Nick trailed off, but it wasn't long before gunfire filled the silence. It was only a few short bursts, but that was enough. We have to let them arrest us. Daryl's right. They'll shoot us if we try anything. Thank you, Daryl said, throwing up his hands. I really wanted us to start our new lives with some kind of advantage, but of course, that was asking too much. For now, I guess we just have to keep surviving, and if that means letting them arrest us, then that's what we'll do. Nick tried to sound more confident than he felt. I think we just stay here and wait for them to come find us? He made it a question. Maybe they won't even check up here. They will, Kay said in a distant tone. She's right, Nick added. But at least we won't be caught up in any gunfights. Okay, I agree. But I need to go get something first, Daryl said as he started toward the door leading down into the warehouse. I'll be right back. What? No, Daryl, stop. Whatever it is, they're just gonna take it from you. It's not worth it. We need to stay together, Nick called after him. Just really quick, trust me, Daryl called back. Stay here with Kay. Nick cursed as he watched him disappear through the door. Why does he never listen? Nick, Kay said softly, and when he turned around, he saw the tears in her eyes. I don't want to die in a cage. They're going to lock us up and leave us behind to starve. Yeah, Nick said as he embraced her in another hug. I thought about that too, but don't worry, we'll figure it out. We're not going to let them leave us behind. I don't think I want to go either, Kay said after a moment of silence. What? Nick asked, taking a step back. What do you mean? You just told us. I know, but I don't think I can. Kay, the world is ending. If you don't come with us, then you're going to die. Maybe that's better. Better? How is that better? You just said you didn't want to die here. I said I don't want to die locked away in some dark room, but I'm old, Nick. I'm not built for this. You said we've been surviving here for years, and I think that's true for you, but it's not for me. You were only here for 3 years and became one of Arthur's top men. I have been here 11 years and I live in your room. I haven't been surviving. I've just been taking my time to die. Kay, he whispered, but the sound of more gunfire stopped him from going on. He took her hand as she reached for him, but he was stunned by what he just heard. How could she say that? How could she want to stay behind? She was always so upbeat and caring, and sure he had seen her spiral into some dark places when she was on a binge, or conversely couldn't get her fix. But he never thought. And then, there was Daryl. He had only been gone a few minutes, but with the gunfire still going off sporadically, that was too long. Nick wanted to go find him, at least get them all together, but he didn't think he was going to be able to get Kay to go with him, not with how tightly she was squeezing his hand. So it was either leave her here to go find him or stay and let Daryl down there alone. How could he make that choice? Kay was clearly in no headspace to be left on her own, but Daryl could be in trouble and need his help too. This was a nightmare. Every time he made a plan, something happened to screw it up. On his run through the city, he started to have delusions of grandeur, daydreams about exploring an alien planet with his friends like life was some sort of sci-fi movie. And now all he wanted to do was survive, to keep his friends alive, but he wasn't even sure if he could do that anymore. "Kay, we have to go find Daryl," Nick said after a few more minutes passed. He knew she would resist, but he had to try. "He's been gone too long. Something must have happened." "No," she said, shaking her head violently. "I'll just wait here." "We have to stay together," he said, taking her hand in both of his. "I know you're scared. I am too, but that's why I need you. I don't know what's coming next. This is all just too insane, but I know I can't do it alone. You said you believed I was a survivor, but I would have never made it this far without you. You taught me how to survive, Kay, please." She stammered. "I don't know if I can." "You can," he said as he gently pulled her toward the door. "We just have to stop thinking and move." "Okay," she said, and he could hear the reluctance in her voice, but still she started to move along with him. That was good enough. "Stay right behind me," Nick said as they reached the door. Kay didn't answer, but he felt her grab the back of his shirt, so he continued. Opening the door slowly, he peeked his head inside. The stairwell leading down to the second floor was empty, and after listening for a few seconds, he decided the gunshots sounded further away than this warehouse. As they began their way downward, he thought about where Daryl could have gone. His best guess was his room since Daryl lived with him, but if that was the case, then he should have been back already. It was still worth checking out first, but if they didn't find him there, then he wasn't sure where to look next. One step at a time, he reminded himself as they reached the second-floor landing. He could feel Kay's grip tightening as they approached the door to the warehouse offices where his rooms were, but he didn't say anything. As long as she stayed with him, that's all that mattered. Trying to take his own advice and keep moving, he slowly opened the door. The hallway was in shambles from the looting, but other than that, it was clear. "All right, let's go," he whispered as he made his way inside. They weren't 5 feet in when Nick saw a group of 3 men in full SWAT gear coming out of his rooms. His heart sank, and his instinct was to turn and run the other way. But just as he was about to give in to that urge, he saw 2 more men coming from his rooms with Daryl held between them. His hands were cuffed behind his back, but he was alive and walking. "Hey, you too!" one of the men shouted as he noticed them. He raised his rifle and shot twice above their heads. "Get on the ground now!" "Do what he says, Kay," Nick shouted as he threw up his hands and slowly started dropping to his knees. Kay didn't say anything, but he could hear her hyperventilating behind him, and the men hadn't fired any more shots, so he assumed she was cooperating. By the time he got to his stomach, 2 of the men were on top of him. "Don't you fucking move!" one yelled as he stepped on his back, and the other zip-tied his wrists. Nick could now see Kay laying on her stomach with her hands behind her back in anticipation, with her eyes shut tight. "It's gonna be all right, Kay, I promise. We'll figure this out," Nick said. Kay opened her eyes, letting the tears spill out, but before she could say anything, he was being pulled onto his feet. "Shut your mouth!" The man keeping hold of him growled as the other one moved to Kay. "You always such a sweetheart?" Nick asked as he craned his neck to see Daryl being led toward them. In an instant, the butt of the man's rifle hit him in the lower back, dropping him to his knees. He yelped and strained against the pain, but before he could even regain his breath, he was being pulled back onto his feet. I said, shut your mouth. Every step was excruciating as Nick was forced down the stairwell. He could feel the heat of the bruise spreading up his back, and with each breath, a spike of pain followed, but he didn't care. He was alive, his friends were alive, and they were together, even if it wasn't the most ideal situation. One step at a time, he reminded himself again. When they got back down to the market, the scene had completely changed. A dozen or more men and women in SWAT gear roamed the warehouse in pairs, some searching the wreckage, others restraining and escorting people outside. Nick didn't see Luther anywhere, alive or dead, but what he did see upset him enough to distract him from the intense pain in his back. The women Luther and his men had taken captive were now being led violently from the warehouse with their hands cuffed behind their backs. No! Nick screamed at them, pulling against his restraints. Pain shot through his back, but he ignored it. They weren't here! They were taken! Shut up! The man behind him said before yanking on his cuffs. Enraged, Nick threw his head back, smashing it hard into the man's face. Then, when he felt the man's grip loosen, he took a step forward and yelled again. They're innocent! You have to let them go! Do your jobs and... The world went black. The next thing Nick was aware of was an intense throbbing in the back of his head. He felt confused and tired, and the muffled voices around him dug at his patience. He just wanted to keep sleeping, but the throbbing in his head was too bad, not to mention the pain shooting up his back. Why was he so sore? Was he sitting up right now? He was. Why would he fall asleep sitting up? Did he get a ticket after the funeral and then nod off? No. The funeral, the aliens, his friends. Nick's eyes snapped open as his memories returned to him in an instant. He was in the back of a SWAT van with his hands cuffed and chained to the floor in front of him, and he wasn't alone. Both benches stretching the van were filled with people who were also cuffed and chained, and by the looks of it, most, but not all, were from the kingdom. See, I told you I saw him moving, Daryl said from his seat directly across from Nick. Oh, thank God, Kay said, grabbing his hand. He hadn't even noticed her sitting next to him. Nick closed his eyes and leaned back, not letting go of Kay's hand. How long was I out? For like 6 minutes, man, Daryl answered. Shit, that's not good. Daryl laughed dryly. No, that's not good. I thought you were dead, Kay said, her voice quivering. That asshole who did it was going to shoot you after, too, but another one stopped him. How nice of him, he said, as he turned his head to lean it against the wall without touching the open gash. Luckily, the van wasn't moving yet, so there were no bumps to jostle him. What about those women? Did they let them go? They talked about it, Daryl said uneasily. The one who stopped that guy from shooting you thought they should let them go, but they didn't, Nick scoffed. We saw them being loaded into another van with Luther and some others, Kay added. What? Nick said, jolting forward and sending a wave of pain through his body. Wincing, he slowly leaned back and calmly asked, What the hell is wrong with them? Why would they do that? I don't know. They wouldn't tell us anything. They are a bunch of jackbooted morons, the man next to Daryl said in a thick Indian accent. He was in his late 40s with a balding head and an extended gut that he rested his hands on. They follow orders like sheep, but they are too stupid to do it right. Where did they pick you up? Nick asked. The man was clearly not from the kingdom. His blue polo shirt and khakis were too nice, and he was far too clean. Right in front of my own house. Can you believe that? I am a city council member, but do they listen? Would you shut up, Haji? A woman said from the other end of the van. Then, in a bad Indian accent, she added, No one cares you were on the city council. That is Arabic, you uneducated swine. I am from India. Ignore her, Nick interjected as she began mocking him again. What did they arrest you for? You don't look like the type to cause trouble, no offense. Your generation always does that. They say no offense right after saying something offensive. But you are right. I am not usually the type. Usually? Nick asked with a small smile. Yes, well, these are strange times. So, what did you do? I'm Daryl, by the way. That's Nick and Kay. The man hesitated, studying them for a moment before saying, Mridul Bakshi. I'd shake your hand, but, Nick said, displaying his cuffs. That is okay, Mridul said with a small grin. All right, Mridul, spill the beans. How does a city council member end up here with us fine folk? Nick asked. Shrugging, Mridul answered. I was using my daughter's bike to beat up my neighbor. He was refusing to move his things so I could get my van out. My wife and daughter were in there with my brother and his family too, and the bastard still wouldn't move. Sounds like he deserved it, Nick said. He did. But the police see a brown man beating up a white man, and they do not care who was right and who was wrong, even if the weapon was a flowery bike with training wheels. Amen, brother, Daryl said seriously. So then what? I doubt they brought the SWAT team out for bicycular assault. They put me in their car with that wonderfully racist young woman down there. Then they brought us here to put us in this thing, and let me tell you, it was not a quick ride. I tried to tell them that I was a city council member and that they were mistaken over and over, but they would not listen. That's 'cause you kept telling them you talked to the aliens, you crazy asshole, the woman from the other end of the van said. I did not say I talked to them. I said I was a part of the message that came before the one everyone else got. There is a difference if you would listen, then. She began mocking him again. Wait, did you say you were part of the first message? Nick asked, sitting forward, ignoring the pain. The one they said they sent to all the world leaders? Mridul stopped arguing and looked back to Nick proudly. Yes, I did. So, they consider city council members world leaders? Daryl asked. Oh, come on. You people aren't really buying this crap, are you? The woman said. Shut up! Nick snapped at her. What did they say? Well, you have to understand, I thought I was going crazy at first, so I don't remember all of it. I was in the shower when it started, and by the time I got to my wife, it was nearly over. We both thought I was losing my mind, but a few minutes after it stopped, she and my daughter got the second message. Once I knew I had not gone crazy, I wrote down everything I could remember before we started packing. My notes are packed away with my things, but writing it down helped me memorize it. From talking with my wife, I put together that most of what they said they also included in their message to the rest of you, but there were a few things they left out. Like what? Nick asked. Do they want our resources? Daryl asked. They did mention resources, actually, Mridul said, looking at him surprised. They said that they understand there are many other species and natural resources on Earth, but that they are already using all their available ships to transport us. So they don't want them? Daryl asked. They said if it is possible, they will return to gather resources and any humans who were left behind. And what are the other things they left out? Nick asked. I think what you are asking is, did they say what they are going to do with us? Mridul said. Did they? Mridul paused before nodding. They mentioned our prison population. They noted how large it is and that they understood that many are dangerous within it, but they insisted they be included in the evacuation. As a precaution, however, they have designated specific ships to transport the prison population separately. Everyone in the back of the van erupted with questions and criticisms. They yelled and stomped and struggled against their restraints in protest to what they just heard, but it did no good. Nick had more questions, too. This news was shocking, to say the least, but he stayed quiet. There was no point trying to talk right now, and eventually, the doors at the back of the van swung open, revealing a large blonde woman in SWAT gear. She fired her gun in the air until everyone fell silent. Once they were quiet, she closed the door without a word.